I don't know why people like the live albums. To me, all the applause gets in the way of listening to the music. Anyways, okay, so no Christian, no Andre. All right, let's get started then. Good afternoon, everybody. As soon as I stand up today, it's going to be an interesting day. There they are. Okay. We are finally putting everything together. All of our deductive reasoning, all of our logic laws, and combining them into writing the whole argument from scratch for a particular topic. All right. And not just any argument, but a fully justified argument, right? Because that's what makes it a good argument. And that's what makes it this dirty word that people, for whatever reason, get so scared of, a proof. Okay? I've crossed that out here. Because I don't want you to think, oh, we're writing this proof, because everybody will harp on you and say, oh, proofs are terrible. It's so hard of a thing. No, they're not. Because really, we're just writing an argument. And it's the same as we've done before. It's just at this point, they're going to be a little bit longer. Right? Instead of 3 lines, it'll be more like 6. Okay? There'll be a multi-step argument. Okay? And in addition to following the laws of logic, right, using modus ponens and law of syllogism, you're going to write that you used modus ponens and law of syllogism. That's the justify part. Right? You're not only following the laws of logic, you are showing your work, showing your thinking, and saying, hey, I know that this thing is true, because we started here. And I know that this next thing is true, because it follows this law of logic. Okay, what's that? Are you not getting sound? Blinking,
Oh,
it's
no,
lighting.
my bad. I was unmuted. I saw a voicemail from my mom real quick.
Okay. So, this direct proof format that we're going to use today, you've seen it before. Okay? This is the 2-column format that I've used on occasion. Again, it's just a little bit longer. Instead of only a 3-line argument, now we're up to, this one's 5, few only 6, maybe 7 lines. But when you zoom in and you look at them one at a time, we can see right here, look at just those 3 lines together. That's the same as exercises we've done before, right? Given, not P. Given, if R, then P. Therefore, not R. How did you know this? Which law of logic are you following here? That example would be modus tollens. And so what we do is over in the other column, we write that out. Oh, from lines 3 and 4 together using modus tollens. That's all this is. Okay? We're just stepping it up another notch, but the content is all the same. You've done this all before. Okay? This is the simplest, most bare bones format, the 2 columns. You write your statements on one side, give each reason on the other, matching the numbers here. Statement 1, why do I know that? Well, that's the premise. It was given to us. So you might see premise, or you could write given. We're indicating that was our starting point. Same with line 2, and they all match up. And notice here on line 3, we say from lines 1 and 2, using modus tollens. So again, referring back to, okay, you used modus tollens, but which pieces did you combine? These ones. Be very specific. Assume that whoever ends up reading this is lost at all times. Right? Every time they read the line, they're like, wait, where'd you get that from? I told you, it's from lines 1 and 2. Okay. Even though they were in order, and they immediately followed, that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you might have a bit longer of a proof, and you'll be halfway through and be like, I need to refer back to this line up here. Right? Maybe you end with, from lines 2 and 4, we can use this. And you want to refer back to them. So that's why we number the lines, so you can be very specific. Which pieces of information go together and how? Okay. One other example you could do, some people prefer a flow chart. If you're a very visual person, maybe looking at it this way, this is the exact same proof, but now it's more visually apparent which pieces, these two go together and to make this one, and then we add this one together, and these two go together to make this one. So you get an idea of that sense of flow of direction instead of a linear path, one after the other. All right? So if you like that, you can use that. You can, of course, turn this whole thing into a paragraph. We've been doing a lot of translating from symbols to words and from words back to symbols. If I wanted to turn this 2-column proof into a full paragraph, it would be something like, given that if P then Q and not Q, we know that not P is true because, right, modus tollens. And you could just add some additional words to it, right? It's just adding a bunch of extra English to link these pieces together. But at the heart of it, it's still these statements, these reasons, in a particular order that flows and makes sense. All right. Any questions at this point? No? Okay, I'm going to run through 1.5 examples with you here, and then I will leave the rest up to you. So today you are going to complete exercises 1 through 10. Okay, stop right there at 10. All of which consist in some fashion of writing out an argument, I would say a well-reasoned argument. Don't say proof. You don't have to say proof. You're writing an argument. In these first few, half the argument is already written for you. They've given you all of the statements in a particular order that makes sense. It's not the only way to do this, but here is the order given. Let's see if we can fill in the reasoning to make this a complete, full, robust argument. Here are the premises. I know P. I know if P then Q. I know if Q then R. I know if R then S, and I want to conclude S. For many of these exercises, they will tell you what your conclusion is in advance. This is like later on in the year, we'll see some mathematical statement, and it'll be like, all of the triangles have this property. And be like, really? How are we certain that all of them know that property? Like, oh, well, you could write a logical argument to prove that. Right? So that's when you know the conclusion ahead of time. Other times you might not know what you're concluding. You'll have a set of premises, like, I already know these things. Let's see what new element I can deduce from that information. And you might figure out a new property based on looking at the premises. Right? In which case, the process is still the same. You just don't have the conclusion ahead of time. All right. So the first step is the easiest. You're always starting with one of the premises, one piece of given information. In this case, they chose if P then Q to start with. How do we know this is true? It was given to us. Right? Or you could write, it was a premise. Same with line 2. If Q then R. That came from right here. That's a premise. As far as your reasoning is concerned, these two words are interchangeable. You can use either statement. You can call it given, or you can say it's a premise. They both mean the same thing. We had that already. Line 3, though, this is new. If P then R, that does not appear on our premise list here. If it did not appear on your premise list, it had to have come from a process of deductive reasoning. So it has to be one of our 4 laws of logic. Okay? Those are your only options at this point. So how do we know? Given already, temporarily ignore the rest of this thing, just focus on this. We only need those 3 lines. From if P then Q, and if Q then R, why can we correctly state if P then R? Which law of logic is that? What do you think? Not modus tollens. Modus tollens is when you negate the conclusion of one of them. Take a look at the format of our new statement. What's it got there in the middle? This thing, what is my red dot pointing at? It's got an arrow, which means this is what kind of statement? An if then, a conditional statement. There is only one law of logic. Actually, that's not true. There are 2 of them that technically give us conditional statements in the end. Which one does this most resemble? Syllogism, yes, that's law of syllogism, right? Notice we've got 2 conditionals. The end of one matches the beginning of the other, and that's the guy that we cut out, and we just said, oh, we just go straight from P to R, right? This is the shortcut guy. We've got a law of syllogism. So our reason for being able to state 3 is law of syllogism. And we're going to be extra specific. We're going to state which lines did we combine with this. We combined lines 1 and 2. Again, at this point, our arguments are simple enough that we're probably always referring to the 2 lines right before, most of the time. So it seems redundant right now. I get that. But it'll be really good habit to have that so that you yourself don't get lost later on if things get a little more complicated or you want to do things a little bit out of order. All right, let's keep going. Next line says, if R then S. How do we know that? That's right up here. That's a premise. All right, so again, we can just write premise or given. You will see both phrases used. Then line 5 says, if P then S. If P then S. Oh, that's not on my premise list. Okay, this is new. Why do we know the conditional if P then S is true? Law of syllogism again. Very good. And which 2 lines are we combining now? Now we combine lines 3 and 4. Good. And then 6, we state P. That was the final premise not yet used. So that was given to us. And now this would be a good time, as I'm getting towards the end, to double check, hey, did I use all of my premises? I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I've written down 4 given premises. Is that how many we started with? They gave us 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I have all of them. When you get to, I think it's starting on 5. Yes, exercise 5, they don't list out the statements already for you. You're going to have to put those together from scratch. And this would be a good time to make a checklist and be like, yep, I used that one, I used that one, used that one. Well, I haven't used this yet. I should probably, right? So if you get stuck, make a checklist. Make sure you've brought in all of your premises. All right, back to here. Our final line, our final conclusion, therefore S. Well, we only had a few things that ended with S in the first place. We did just bring in this new given. That's a hint. The fact that I had to bring in one final new piece of information before I could conclude S means it almost has to be involved somehow. So if I were to look at these last 3 lines, which law of logic does that most resemble? My conclusion is a single statement. There's only 2 laws of logic that give me a single statement in the end. Modus ponens? Maybe, let's check. Modus ponens would say I have a conditional, and then I state the hypothesis, the first half of that conditional. Is that what's happening here? This matches the first half. Absolutely. Remember, modus tollens would be negating the second half. I definitely had modus ponens here. Good job. So we can say that is law of modus ponens, or you don't have to say law of, you can just say MP. Modus ponens, combining lines 5 and 6. That's the whole thing. Any questions on this so far? Anyone not sure how they are going to complete questions 2 through 4? Because those are the same thing. No? All right, let's skip ahead then and look at 5. That's where they change things up. Now, you have to provide the whole thing from scratch. Here are the premises. Get to this conclusion by any means necessary. So you're going to have to start it yourself. I'm like, okay, well, I should always start with one of the premises, and I need to get to this conclusion. Gee, I'm not sure how these go together. If you're ever stuck, a fantastic way to deal with this is work backwards. When you know what you're trying to conclude, take a look at your premises and see, how can I get this conclusion out of anything? I need to conclude S. Where can I possibly draw an S from these premises? Not there, not there. This is the only line that has an S. So I have to use that, right? So you can almost state like, whatever it is, however many steps, 7, 8, whatever. The last step is going to be therefore S. You always start with one of your premises. You'll always end with your conclusion. You might not know what number it is, but you know that much. And you're almost always going to have, well, I got to have R then S somewhere before that, right? In order to get S, I have to have R then S. So this tells me if I know R is true, I can know S is true. That's great. How can I know R is true? Okay, how else can I get R? Well, up here. Hey, in order to get R, you have to have Q. If I know Q is true, then I know R is true. Oh, right? And we can just follow that backwards until we reach a starting position. To get Q, I must have P. That's what this says. And then, hey, I already have P. Right? So there's several ways we could start this. Method 1 would be to start condensing these conditionals down with law of syllogism, just like we did in question 1. We would start with P then Q, that's given. We'd say if Q then R, that was given. And then we could say, hey, if P then R by law of syllogism, right? And then this looks pretty much the same as question 1. You're looking at me funny. Where did I lose you? Now you got it, okay. A little too fast, I'll slow down. All right, so you could keep going there, and it would be a few laws of syllogism, and then at the end you bring in P again, and then we have the if P then S, and then we're going to have therefore S, right? Exactly the same as question 1. That's not the only way to do this, though. This is an open-ended question. There's more than one way to answer these. Here's another one. Maybe you like to start with the one thing you definitely know. I know P is true. That's given. Well, where can P lead me? P can lead to Q. That was given. Which means I know that Q is true all by itself by modus ponens. Now that I have Q by itself, I can use if Q then R, and I can conclude R all by itself. Now that I have R, I can, right? And so you could do just a step of modus ponens, another given, modus ponens, another given, modus ponens, right? And you could just walk your way through to the end until you get to S that way. That works too. Okay? So there's several ways to approach these, several ways to write them down. And again, the specific order you write them in is not critical so long as you make sure you reference, hey, this is from lines 1 and 2. That way anybody that reads this, they can follow, okay, which ones do I need to refer back to? Those and those go together. Gotcha. All right? Maybe you're not sure where to start. Maybe you just want to list all your premises first. Here's line 1, 2, 3, 4. Then on line 5, you'll actually start combining things. Let's see. Oh, I can get this from law of syllogism from, right, 2 and 3. Right? You could do that too. Another way to start. Okay. Giving you plenty of options here. Any questions here? Or are you ready to begin? All right then. One final reminder, since plenty of you are on Chromebooks, if you would like to type up responses to these, remember there is the tilde key in the upper left corner next to the 1. Use that for your negations. If you need to type an arrow, I have tested earlier, you can do hyphen, hyphen, greater than, and Google Docs will automatically reformat that into a nice, pretty connected arrow, just like you see between P's and Q's typed there. The one symbol we're missing, though, is the conclusion, the therefore at the end. We can't type that straight off the keyboard. So you can either use the insert special character, and if you search for therefore, you'll find it. That's not too bad. Start with one of those. As soon as you have it on the page, and then you can just copy and paste it wherever you need it, instead of inserting again. Or I will accept, if you are in a hurry and you need to use keyboard only, I will totally accept colon, period, which is a set of 3 dots in a triangle formation. It's just It's a right triangle instead of an equilateral one, but close enough. All right? So if you insist on typing, you may use that. Otherwise, I will leave you to it.